Imagine a world where your neighbor's prayer is not a threat, but a reflection of shared devotion to the Creator. Imagine a world where your identity as a believer does not make you a target, but a bridge to mutual respect. This is not a fantasy. It is the heart of Islam. The heart that beat in the chest of Prophet Muhammad when he stood to protect a Christian delegation from Najjar, welcoming them into his mosque, allowing them to pray in their own way. This is the Islam that calls every believer to stand for justice, not just for themselves, but for anyone facing oppression. Today, in the lands of India, where rivers of culture flow deep and where hearts once beat in spiritual harmony, we witness growing waves of religious intolerance. Our Christian brothers and sisters, like many Muslims, face discrimination, violence, and fear simply for practicing their faith. And so we ask, what does Islam demand from us in times like this? The answer is clear. Allah commands justice, kindness, and mercy. Islam is not silent in the face of oppression. Islam is a light that must shine even brighter when darkness grows. In this video, we are not here to condemn, but to awaken. To awaken the spirit of unity, to remind ourselves and others that religious intolerance is not just an attack on people, it is an attack on the very fabric of divine mercy that all faiths represent. From the Quranic message to the actions of the Prophet, we will explore why standing up for Indian Christians is not just a human right, it is a spiritual obligation for Muslims. So stay with me until the end, because this message isn't just about religion, it's about what kind of world we choose to build, one of hatred or one of hope, one of silence or one of spiritual courage. Islam, at its heart, is a divine call to justice, compassion, and truth, and within that truth lies a clear command to honor the people of the book, including Christians. The Quran, revealed by Allah as guidance for all of humanity, does not teach hate or exclusivity. It teaches recognition of shared values and respect for sincere faith. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah declares that those who believe in Him, whether they are Muslims, Jews, or Christians, and who live righteously, will find reward with their Lord. This powerful statement reminds us that righteousness is not restricted by name or nation. It is measured by intention, sincerity, and action. Throughout Islamic teachings, there is a deep reverence for those who worship the one God, even if their paths differ. Islam recognizes the Injil given to Prophet Isa, Jesus, and acknowledges the devotion of many Christians as people who fear God and love righteousness. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad set the highest example of interfaith respect. He welcomed Christian delegations, such as those from Najran, allowing them to pray in his own mosque without judgment or interference. He issued covenants of protection to Christian communities, granting them religious freedom and security under Islamic governance. The Prophet once declared that if any Muslim harmed a Christian under protection, it would be a betrayal of him personally. Such teachings make it undeniably clear: Islam does not support religious intolerance. Rather, it demands that Muslims protect the dignity, places of worship, and lives of others, especially those committed to the worship of God, even if in different forms. In today's world, where Indian Christians face growing pressure, hostility, and even violence, a Muslim cannot turn away in indifference. Silence in the face of oppression contradicts the very soul of our faith. Allah commands us to stand firmly for justice, even if it is against our own. The suffering of others, especially those who are targeted for their beliefs, is not something we can ignore if we claim to follow a religion of mercy. It is our duty to recognize that protecting Indian Christians from intolerance is not about politics. It's about embodying divine values. It is about upholding truth, mercy, and the legacy of our Prophet, who stood not only for Muslims, but for all who sought peace. When we defend the rights of others, we do not weaken our faith, we strengthen it. This is the Islam that the world needs to see, strong, just, and fearless in love and truth. Across the pages of Islamic history, there's a principle that repeats like a heartbeat. The believer is not just responsible for his own prayers, but also for the justice of his society. and that justice does not stop at the boundaries of faith. When we speak of the rising tide of religious intolerance in India, especially the targeting of Christians, our responsibility as Muslims becomes even clearer. The Quran does not teach selective justice. Allah commands us in Surah An-Nisa to stand firmly for justice, even if it be against yourselves or your kin. This is not just a political directive, it's a spiritual responsibility. Our deen teaches that to witness oppression and remain silent is to share in the sin of that injustice. When Christian families in Indian villages are denied their right to worship, or when their churches are vandalized, or when they are pressured to convert by force, we are not looking at a distant issue. We are looking at a test of our own moral integrity. It is easy to get caught in tribalism, to believe that because someone prays differently, their pain doesn't concern us. But that is not Islam. That is ego. And ego has no place in the heart of a true believer. Prophet Muhammad warned us against arrogance and division. He showed us with his actions that the heart of Islam is unity in humanity, not superiority of one group over another. When he wrote the Charter of Medina, it wasn't just for Muslims. It was for Christians, Jews, and all citizens, binding them together under mutual rights and protections. That charter was not just a legal document. It was a divine expression of coexistence. So today, when a Christian in India is afraid to enter his church, when their women are insulted and their children targeted, a true Muslim doesn't say, "It's not my problem." A true Muslim remembers the Prophet who stood for the oppressed, who was the mercy to all worlds, not just to Muslims. Standing up for Indian Christians is not abandoning Islam, it is fulfilling it. Because in the tears of the oppressed, Allah has placed a call for the believer to respond, and if we don't answer that call, then we've missed the message of our faith. In defending others' rights, we don't dilute our religion, we awaken its deepest spirit. The world doesn't need more people claiming religion, it needs more people living it. And that starts with justice for all. The heart of Islam beats with the rhythm of justice, mercy, and divine accountability. When a Muslim sees injustice anywhere, whether it's against a fellow Muslim or someone of another faith, the response is not silence, but action. The mistreatment of Indian Christians, often ignored by the global spotlight, should not go unnoticed by the Muslim Ummah. These are people of the book, people who believe in one God, people who follow a scripture that shares many roots with our own. Islam never asked us to agree with every theological difference, but it commanded us to protect the dignity of every soul who worships God. The Prophet Muhammad did not just tolerate Christians, he honored them. He sent letters of peace, granted protection, and warned harshly against any harm done to them. Today, when Christians are targeted in Indian villages, forced out of their homes, threatened for practicing their faith, sometimes even killed, we must ask ourselves, where is our voice? Where is our outrage? If our prophet were among us today, would he stay silent? To be a Muslim is to carry a burden of truth, not just in our prayer mats, but in our streets. We are taught to be the voice for the voiceless, the shield for the vulnerable. And when intolerance rears its head in the form of violence against Christians in India, the Quran reminds us, do not let hatred of a people prevent you from being just. Be just, that is nearer to righteousness. Our deen does not support passivity in the face of injustice. It demands courage, empathy, and firm action. Speaking for the rights of Christians in India does not make one less Muslim. It reflects the true legacy of Islam, a legacy where the oppressed were embraced, where enemies became brothers, and where faith was not a reason to fight, but a reason to protect. Let us not become numb to the cries of others simply because they call God by a different name. The God we worship is the same God who hears every cry and sees every tear. If we turn our backs on the suffering of others, we turn our backs on the essence of our religion. But if we stand up, loudly, proudly, and compassionately, we reflect the light of Islam not just in words, but in deeds. That light is needed now more than ever. Religious intolerance is not just a violation of human rights. It is a betrayal of divine trust. As Muslims, we are entrusted by Allah to be the upholders of justice, the protectors of dignity, and the guardians of peace, not only for ourselves, but for all of humanity. When we see Indian Christians being denied their right to practice their religion freely, to gather in peace, and to live without fear, our hearts should tremble. This is not a distant issue. It is a spiritual test placed before us. The Quran commands us to speak out against injustice regardless of the victim's identity. When Christians in India are falsely accused of forced conversions, beaten for attending Sunday services, or harassed for wearing crosses, this is not merely a Christian problem. It is a human problem, and therefore an Islamic responsibility. Throughout Islamic history, whenever the religion was at its strongest, it protected those of other faiths. Umar ibn al-Khattab, when he conquered Jerusalem, refused to pray in a Christian church, not because he rejected it, but because he feared that Muslims after him would use it as a reason to take that church. He wanted Christians to feel safe, protected, and honored under Muslim leadership. That is the model we were given. It is not our place to enforce our beliefs on others, but to live our beliefs so sincerely and beautifully that others are drawn toward truth by love, not by fear. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, "There is no compulsion in religion." If this is a foundational verse in our book, how can we ignore the compulsion and coercion that is being used against Christians in the name of religion or culture? Indian Christians are a minority struggling to hold on to their heritage, their scriptures, and their God-given right to believe. They are being pushed out of their homes, their churches destroyed, and their voices silenced. The Muslim response should not be to look away or to consider them outsiders. It should be to speak up, to stand with them, and to call for justice. In doing so, we are not just supporting another community. We are affirming the truth of our own. We are honoring the Quran. We are walking in the footsteps of the Prophet, and we are proving that Islam is not a religion of convenience, but a way of life rooted in justice, mercy, and unwavering courage in the face of oppression. The silence of good people in the face of injustice is louder than the cruelty of the oppressor. As Muslims, we are not allowed to remain passive observers when persecution is unfolding before our eyes, especially when it comes to those who, like us, believe in one God and walk paths of righteousness in their own traditions. The Christian minority in India is not simply being marginalized, they are being humiliated, attacked, and stripped of their religious freedom. Sometimes even their lives, their places of worship are burned, their gatherings are disrupted, and they are falsely accused of converting people against their will simply for preaching peace and hope. If Islam is truly a religion of justice, then it must speak out, not just for Muslims, but for every soul unjustly treated. Prophet Muhammad never taught selective compassion. When he sent letters to Christian tribes, he assured them of their safety, their churches, and their clergy. He promised them protection as an obligation upon Muslims, not as a favor, but as a duty. What are we doing today to honor that promise? Are we remembering his sunnah, or are we hiding behind silence? It is easy to become distracted by geopolitical tensions, nationalistic narratives, or communal pride, but the voice of Islam is not built on tribalism. It is built on truth, equity, and the unwavering command to stand with the oppressed. The Quran reminds us that those who believe, and the Jews and the Christians, whoever believes in Allah and the last day and does righteousness, they will have their reward with their Lord. This is not just about defending Christians. It's about defending the principles that make Islam beautiful. It's about proving that our religion stands tall when the world stoops low. When we advocate for justice for Indian Christians, we are not diluting our faith, we are elevating it. We are showing the world that Islam is not a religion of hatred, but one of compassion, that our strength lies not in our numbers, but in our value. If we let religious intolerance fester because the victims are not Muslims, we have misunderstood the essence of the Ummah. The Prophet said, "Help your brother, whether he is oppressed or the oppressor." Today, our Christian brothers and sisters are oppressed, and in defending them, we reflect the light of Islam not just in masjids, but in the world that desperately needs that light. Islam is not just a religion, it's a divine mission of justice, mercy, and human dignity. When we witness religious intolerance, especially toward fellow believers in God, like Indian Christians, we are not merely watching a political issue unfold. We are witnessing a test of our own faith. The Prophet Muhammad taught us that true belief is reflected not only in our prayers, but in how we treat others. When Christians in India are assaulted for attending church, ridiculed for wearing crosses, or silenced for proclaiming their faith, the Muslim heart should feel pain, because this is not just a Christian issue. It's a violation of everything Islam stands for. The Quran speaks profoundly to this. Allah tells us in Surah Al-Mumtahana, Allah does not forbid you from being kind and just to those who have not fought you because of religion or expelled you from your homes. This is divine clarity. We are not only allowed to stand with peaceful people of other faiths, we are commanded to treat them with fairness and compassion. When religious intolerance spreads in India under the mask of nationalism or political agendas, Muslims should not let biases, fear, or silence dictate our response. We are a community that was raised to be witnesses over mankind, to enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. How then can we ignore the cries of innocent Christians when their only crime is devotion to their version of God? Historically, Muslims protected Christians. The Prophet signed pacts of protection with Christian communities, and early Muslim leaders like Salahuddin Ayyubi ensured the safety of churches even in times of war. These weren't acts of weakness, they were reflections of Islamic strength and ethics. To remain silent today, when those same communities are under attack, would be to betray that noble legacy. By standing with Indian Christians against religious intolerance, we are reviving the very core of our Islamic identity. Let the world see that Muslims are not indifferent to the suffering of others. Let us be the voice that calls for harmony, the hands that protect the persecuted, and the hearts that beat for justice. Because when we rise for others, especially when the world expects us to look away, we don't just serve humanity, we serve Allah. And in that service, we find the highest honor. In the end, standing up for the rights of Indian Christians is not just an act of empathy. It is a reflection of the essence of Islam. It is a testament to our commitment to justice, compassion, and the shared humanity that binds us all. As Muslims, we cannot remain silent in the face of oppression, regardless of the faith of those who suffer. Our Prophet showed us the path of kindness, fairness, and protection for all, and it is our duty to walk in his footsteps. When we stand against religious intolerance, we are not only defending the oppressed, but we are also upholding the true spirit of Islam, one that advocates for peace, unity, and the dignity of every human being. In defending others, we ultimately strengthen our own faith and fulfill the divine call to be a force for good in this world. Let us rise together, for justice knows no boundaries, and mercy transcends all differences.